All right, so why don't we just get started?
Hello everybody and welcome to the Motorcycle Zero Show. Today we're going to be reviewing the 9-ounce Steahly Flywheel Weight that I installed on my 2016 YZ 450F. First, let me start this review by saying this is the best modification that I've done to my bike so far. Not just in terms of luggability of the engine, but in terms of handling, cornering, traction, and control of the bike in the slow technical sections, on top of smoothing out the power delivery, which makes the bike much more enjoyable to ride, especially on those long rides. So in my last video I showed you how to install the flywheel weight, but I didn't explain what a flywheel weight was and why you'd want to install one. So what is a flywheel weight? It's pretty simple. The name implies it. It's a weight that you put on your flywheel, and it increases the rotating mass of the engine. Now, why would you want to increase the rotating mass of your engine? And why didn't your bike come with a heavier flywheel? Well, the simple answer as to why you'd want to add one is for more control. And the reason it didn't come with one is because the motocross bike that I ride is designed for racing. But wait, you might be wondering, if I don't race motocross, why would I buy a motocross bike? And why am I trying to convert a motocross bike into a trail bike or a desert bike? Well, that's a whole different topic, and it's been debated on many other YouTube channels. You have a lot of questions like, can a motocross bike, once fully converted, can it be as good as a trail bike from the factory? And then there's the whole 4-stroke versus 2-stroke debate for tight technical riding. Are 4 strokes too heavy? Can a 4-stroke 450 engine be lugged? Do they have too much power? Now, all that can and has been debated. Would it be more advantageous for me to go out and buy a trail bike to do that type of technical riding? Maybe, but I also ride the desert, and I like to do hill climbs, and although I'm taking a hiatus for the time being, I was doing Grand Prix races. So I bought this bike to be a jack of all trades. And besides that, I don't have the finances to go out and buy a bike just for racing, and just for trail riding, and just for desert riding. I have one bike, and I want it to do everything, good or bad. That's what I want. Anyway, back to the flywheel weight. If you've ridden the modern fuel-injected YZ 450, you know the power delivery can be very aggressive on these bikes. And in certain situations, you might find it hard to keep the bike under control. For example, if you're on a terrain where traction is limited, maybe it's a little slick, or maybe there's gravel on top of a hard surface, and you crack the throttle open, you could lose control of the rear end. Conversely, sometimes you're in terrain where you have excellent traction, and you might loft the front end higher in the air than you really wanted to. So this is where the flywheel weight does its thing. By adding extra rotational mass to the engine, you limit the engine's ability to rotate as freely as it would with a lighter flywheel. Now, does this mean you lose power? Maybe. I think that's going to be more of a science thing. So let's look into it. What we're dealing with here is increased moment of inertia. And if you have a diminished moment of inertia, it will take your engine less time to build RPM. If you have an increased moment of inertia, it will take your engine more time to build RPM. So the higher moment of inertia means more resistance. A lower moment of inertia means less resistance. And it's not just about the weight of the flywheel, it's the weight and where it's placed. You could have the same 9-ounce weight on the flywheel all placed around the washer, and you wouldn't have the same effects. It's because that 9 ounces are on the outside of the rim of the flywheel that you get that increased moment of inertia. So technically, it's true that you do lose some power. Any power that is used to spool up an increased moment of inertia is power that you're not using to propel your bike forward. So yes, in a sense, you are losing a little power, but you don't really notice it. What you do notice is that it smooths out the power band, and it really makes for a nice linear progression of power. I feel like I still have the same power, I just have a little more low-end torque along with the great mid-range and great top-end horsepower that this bike provides. And because that power is more manageable, I found I have much better traction coming out of turns and the tight technical stuff. And for that reason, the flywheel weight has become one of the best modifications I've done to improve handling on this bike. So not only has this improved handling of my bike, it's also made this bike operate at a much lower RPM than I really ever thought a 450 could. If you listen to the engine in the background, you can hear this 450 just chugging along where you expect an oversquared engine to flame out. To me, it's just amazing. So just listen to it and you'll hear it. Now, in some of the videos, you will hear me blipping the throttle as I'm going through some slower technical stuff. That's really not a product of the bike, that's a product of the race clutch that I had installed on it, or that I installed on it because I was racing. And it's just a very grabby clutch, and it really doesn't like to slip. So I think one of my next modifications will be going back to the stock clutch because I miss having a smoother clutch. But there are other places that I felt that this flywheel weight has helped out. One of them starting the bike. With the heavier rotating mass, I've noticed the engine will turn over a couple more revolutions with each kick that I give. I mean, yeah, it's only 9 ounces, but it's that whole moment of inertia anything. I guess there are some downsides to having a heavier flywheel, like diminished engine braking, because that same mass that's rotating, it doesn't want to stop. That's one of Newton's laws, right? And I did notice that it doesn't engine brake as much, but I'll be honest, on these fuel-injected engines, they're completely different than the carbureted engine. When you roll off the throttle on a fuel-injected engine, it just falls on its face. There's no gradual taper of the power. And now, while I do still experience that rapid cutoff of the power, it's significantly reduced with the flywheel weight. So it's made the bike a little bit easier to ride in that aspect too. So that's my review on the Steahly Flywheel Weight. It's a great product.
I love your product, man. I love your product.
And if you're doing the same type of riding that I'm doing on a motocross bike, this really is a must-have modification. It just transforms the bike into something so much better. So if you're looking for a flywheel weight, go ahead and look at Steahly.
You betcha it's a blast! You betcha it's a blast! And lightning bolts. You betcha it's a blast!